For USCFootball.com, I'm Nicole Shearin here with Ryan Abraham after USC spring practice number 10. And guess where it was? It was in the Coliseum right behind us. Ryan, what are your initial thoughts about the first time that the Trojans were at the Coliseum today?
It's very weird. We had a very hot practice last week. I think Saturday was pretty warm for them too. It's a lot chillier here and it was windy, but it was kind of more like game conditions. Lincoln Riley talked about getting in the Coliseum for the first time. There's a lot of new players on this team, couple incoming freshmen. We got 13 transfers, never practiced in the Coliseum. They've gone here for recruiting visits and stuff, but never been in here. So more of a game kind of environment. It seems like all the coaches like the fact that the players will be able to be in here. It's a way to change things up. You only get 15 spring practices, and you want to finish strong. Lincoln Riley talked about that. They're 10 down, and you got 5 to go. He liked what he's seen from USC players in spring practice so far and what the coach has been able to do. But you can't coast. And coming here for one of the practices, knowing that you're going to have the spring game here in a couple of weeks, I think was a boost for these guys. It seemed like everyone was energized to be out here and yelling and screaming whatever for spring practice.
After spring practice, we were down at the field. I happened to see Gary Bryant on a cart being carted out with an injury. So, Ryan, what are some other injuries you've noticed so far?
Yeah, we don't get a lot of injury updates. And Lincoln Riley was asked about 2 of them today. Mekhi Blackman, the transfer cornerback, was wearing a boot. He was asked about him. He was like, yeah, he's fine. He's just nicked up. If they had a game today, he could play. Same thing, Gary Bryant. We saw him with like one of his shoes off and no sock on that foot, getting carted off. And he was asked about him, the same kind of thing. I think the good part of this is, he might not like to talk about injuries, which is fine. But there's not much of an emphasis on that. We're not seeing a ton of guys over on Rehab Island where last year you could see 30, 40 guys that really weren't practicing, that weren't available. It's crazy. Now you're just not seeing that as much. There's a lot of competition, Nicole. People want to be out on the practice field. They want to get their spot, and they can't do that if they're over like stretching in Rehab Island or riding a bike. Seems like they're out there wanting to practice, wanting to play. Kyron Ware-Hudson, the wide receiver, Dennis Simmons talked about him today being a tough kid. He's another injured guy right now, but he's out there practicing. So we're seeing a lot more of that, which is a good sign.
Speaking of Dennis Simmons, there's been a lot of talk about these athletes from the transfer portal who are taking on that leadership role on this team. What did you hear about that today? Yeah,
so Chris Torino got to talk to Dennis more in depth about it and, asked about the leadership, and you're going right to Mario Williams, the transfer from Oklahoma, Terrell Bynum, the transfer from Washington, and Brendan Rice, the transfer from Colorado. So these are veteran guys. These are guys that have played. There's just not a lot of experience on this team as far as the wide receiver spot goes. We think a guy like Kyle Ford can do well. We heard Gary Bryant had a really good practice before he went down, and Kyron Ware-Hudson, he's a tough guy. He's out there. I think there's a lot of guys with potential, but they haven't done it, day in and day out like these guys that have transferred in. So it's a good sign, I think, that they're coming in and trying to be leaders for this group because they need some leadership. They have 10 scholarship wide receivers. They're probably going to add another 1 or 2 from the portal because Lincoln Riley talked about playing 8 or 10 guys. So if you only have 10 on scholarship, you probably need a couple more.
So you spoke with Max Gibbs today after practice. What did you get to hear from him?
Yeah, so Max Gibbs, he said he played at 400 pounds last year. Now, if you remember, he switched from offensive line to the defensive line. He's now back on the offensive line, and he said he's down to 370 pounds. He's doing a lot more running. He loves Benny Wiley's, the conditioning program. He just wants to get down to about 350 pounds. Just a bright kid. Everyone loves him. He was such a popular player on the defensive side of the ball. All the defensive players loved him whenever he would come in and make a play. And I asked him about that. He's like, yeah, he misses those guys, but he loves working with Josh Henson on the offensive line. He said the plan all along was for him to go back to be on the offensive line. So it seemed like he was good with either way, but they're going to use him at one of the guard spots. I think he's mostly playing on the right side right now. So we'll see what his progression goes along. You got to get back in the swing of things after playing on the defensive line all last year. But the fact that he's in better shape, losing weight, he was talking about, it's not just about the weight. He feels like he's a lot stronger. He was showing off his muscle. He's a big dude.
He's what, Ryan? He's what?
He's yoked. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thanks. Yeah, he is definitely yoked. And for a bigger guy, for a 370-pound guy. So he's one of the more popular players on the team. So you wish him well. And we'll see if he can contribute. He's kind of running with the second team right now.
One of the players that has been making some noise in practices recently is Austin Jones. Obviously, we don't get to see a whole lot, but from what you heard, Ryan, what is the noise that's going around him right now?
Yeah, so Kyle McDonald, our guy Ahmad, talked to him today. The former Utah running backs coach. He's great. He's recruited a lot of these guys that he brought in. You talked to Darwin Barlow. He's awesome. You talked to Travis Dye, he's great. Austin Jones is one of those guys too. He looks pretty yoked too. He looks like he's a built guy, but he sort of can be like the guy that's lost in the shuffle because Dye is maybe the more versatile guy. He's the senior. A lot of people just expect him to kind of be the starter. So for Cal McDonald to bring out Austin Jones specifically, I think like they like all of these guys. So it's two guys coming in from Pac-12 teams, and you have one guy from TCU, and then you're going to bring in Rayleigh Brown. It's not a big group. Another group, you're probably going to have to add somebody from the transfer portal. But it's good to hear a guy like Austin Jones has really been impressing people because he had an impressive resume when he was at Stanford, and he maybe kind of been the forgotten guy of those three. But it's good that he's getting some love there too.
I spoke with Mason Murphy after practice today, and we were talking about the offensive line, and he said that actually Brett Nealon was gold-plated today, which is awesome. And I also noticed that Miller Moss was gold-plated. So what do you have to say about these players who are continuously getting those gold plates for this team?
Yeah, I mean, we learned that Caleb Williams was gold-plated. You know, Miller Moss is similar vein. Like, he's just someone that when you talk to him, he's always going to be out there working hard. He's always going to be a leader. Brett Nealon, the same sort of thing. We can't see the helmets most of the time. They have these pads on the helmet. So if you know, the gold plate is basically the logo. Everyone gets the Cardinal helmet and you have to earn the logo. And you sort of, every practice we hear about one or two more. And those are names you would expect, those guys to get gold plated. But it's really hard to see because everyone's wearing the pads on their helmets. So good for those guys. I think by the end of spring football, I'm guessing most everyone on the two deep is going to have their gold plate going into summer workouts and stuff. Because Lincoln Riley talked about before, like no one's going to be playing if they didn't earn that helmet sticker. So I like the wrinkle. I think it's something we can get this little update every day about, oh, he's got gold plated and they can talk about it and stuff. So it's kind of cool.
So spring practice number 10 is in the books, but Ryan, do you have any initial last thoughts from outside the Coliseum today?
Yeah, I think it's 2/3 of the way through. And I like what Lincoln Riley said about not sitting on your laurels. You just have to go and finish strong. You can't coast in. I love that everyone seems to be on their toes. They are wanting to get out there and practice as much as possible. And there's going to be another opportunity to play in the Coliseum next Tuesday. And then the following Saturday is going to be the spring game. And when Lincoln Riley talked about that, it seemed like he was really genuinely, he's happy with the team. He likes what they're doing right now. It's not perfect, but he likes the progress they've made. And he wants people to be able to see this team. He knows that there's a long way to go, they still have to add some pieces, but the way they've kind of built this group, which, kind of last minute putting it all together with the transfer portal stuff, it seems to be coming together pretty well. So we'll all get to see it on Saturday, the 23rd at noon on, he said, national television. So he wants everyone to go out and kind of see his team. So I think he knows he's put together something pretty cool and he's going to add to it. But now you want the opportunity to show everyone like, hey man, you guys talk about this team, but this is a pretty good team that's going to compete for a Pac-12 championship. So seems like that's what he didn't say that specifically, but that's kind of the feeling I got from him. I don't know if you felt that way too.
No, I definitely agree. And it's exciting because it's a little over a week away before the spring game. And we're going to get to see the Coliseum hopefully packed.
Yeah.
So it'll be definitely exciting, but that's going to do it for Instant Analysis from outside the Coliseum today. For Ryan Abraham, I'm Nicole Shearin. Check out uscfootball.com for more.